David had served King Saul well, too well, in fact. David caught the imagination of the people. They sang songs which elevated him above his king. For David had the Spirit of God, which had been taken away from Saul. Saul had chosen to disobey God, had not trusted God and relied upon God, and so the Spirit of the Lord ceased to help him, and instead he had the help of a spirit from Satan's side of the house, a distressing spirit, causing him to get depressed, causing him to be envious of David. Over several years, he sought to have David killed, either directly by himself or by sending him out on missions. But David behaved wisely. He always came home with another success, and this just aggravated the situation for Saul. Now Saul has determined to kill David. No reconciliation is possible now. But David has never done anything against Saul, and he will not lift up his hand against the Lord's anointed. So he fled, first to Samuel, but Saul chased him there. Then he went to the priests and obtained a sword, Goliath's sword no doubt, from them. But that was not safe either. He was seen there by one of Saul's servants, Doeg the Edomite. And so he went to the Philistines. But that was not safe, because they recognized him, and so he feigned madness. David therefore departed from there, and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented, gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men with him. Then David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please, let my father and mother come here with you, till I know what God will do for me." So he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Now the prophet Gad said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold. Depart, and go to the land of Judah." So David departed, and went into the forest of Hereth. When Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered, now Saul was staying in Gibeah under a tamarisk tree in Ramah, with his spear in his hand and all his servants standing around him. Then Saul said to his servants who stood about him, "Hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? All of you have conspired against me, and there is no one who reveals to me that my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there is not one of you who is sorry for me, or reveals to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait, as it is this day." Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who was set over the servants of Saul, and said, "I saw the son of Jesse going to Nob, to Abimelech the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." So the king sent to call Abimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were in Nob, and they all came to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." He answered, "Here I am, my lord." Then Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me, to lie in wait, as it is this day?" So Ahimelech answered the king and said, "And who among all your servants is as faithful as David? Who is the king's son-in-law, who goes at your bidding, and is honourable in your house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Far be it from me. Let not the king impute anything to his servant, or to any of the house of my father. For your servant knew nothing of all this, little or much." And the king said, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house." Then the king said to the guards who stood about him, Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and did not tell it to me. But the servants of the king would not lift up their hands to strike the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, You turn and kill the priests. So Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priests, and killed on that day 85 men who wore a linen ephod. Also Nob, the city of the priests, he struck with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and nursing infants, oxen and donkeys and sheep, with the edge of the sword. Now one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the Lord's priests. So David said to Abiathar, I knew that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have caused the death of all the persons in your father's house. Stay with me, do not fear, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. But with me you shall be safe. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from 1 Samuel chapter 22. The story of David has many similarities with the story of Jesus. Jesus is in fact called the Son of David because his path is so much like David's path. David has done no evil at this time. The Spirit of the Lord is with him. But the incumbent regime, that of King Saul, is determined to kill him. And that's what it was with the Lord Jesus. He went about doing good. He was popular with the people. Crowds of people came to him. But the authorities in Jesus' day knew that their authority was not from God, and that they would not rule under Jesus' regime when he took up the rule as King of Israel, and indeed King of Kings. And so they sought to, and eventually succeeded in executing Jesus, only to have him rise from the dead. This is what happened to David. He served well in Saul's army, honouring Saul as king, not putting a foot wrong. But the popularity he gained turned Saul's mind against David. Saul knew David would be king unless he killed him first, and so he sought to kill him, but he had no success. So David has fled to the wilderness. Those who supported him came to him, many of them because they were oppressed in Saul's kingdom. His mother, his father, and his brothers come to him. Up until this time, his brothers had been critical of him, but they had seen Samuel anoint David. Remember what the oldest said when he came to fight Goliath? But now they join his side, and he takes them to the king of Moab, who of course will be happy to support anyone who's in opposition to the king of Israel, as David was. But when Saul heard where David was, he was really cross, and he ranted at his servants, None of you tell me about David. None of you report what his treachery against me. You don't even tell me that my son Jonathan has risen up against me to support David. And of course among them is this Edomite, Doeg, chief of Saul's herdsmen, who was with the priests in Nob when David came. And so he reports, because he is not on the Lord's side. He is out there for himself, and here's an opportunity to advance himself before the king. The king calls the priests. All of them come, and he rants against them. They make their defence, but it's of no point, because Saul is not interested in justice, in finding the truth. He can't get at David, so he'll get at anybody who's on David's side. And so in the world today, anyone who professes to be a follower of Jesus will be subject to the attacks of the authorities of this world, and they will justify it falsely. Saul's soldiers wouldn't kill the priests, but Doeg did, and wiped out their city. Only one of them escaped to tell David. David feels very responsible, but he couldn't help the situation. Saul has killed all the priests.